Welcome back to Fast Market, everyone. Kevin Hinks back here for our middle segment of the show. Joe Mazzola, Director of Trader Education at Charles Schwab, has agreed to stick around for the rest of the show. Now I'd like to welcome in Miss Megan Brantley. She is the Vice President of Research at LikeFolio.com. And Megan, it just feels good on a Friday when we can talk about travel and traveling. And by the way, Megan, it appears that everyone else in the country is talking about it too, because everything about travel seems to be exploding. You're talking about some of the booking companies like Bookings Holdings and Expedia. What do you have for us today, Megan?
Yeah, so I don't know about you guys, but here in Louisville, it is still technically spring break. So whenever I look out in this parking lot, it's really sad. There are very few cars because everybody is traveling. Everyone is at the beach or in the mountains or on a trip. And I don't think that that is, an isolated event. Whenever we look at our travel data, we see continued strength on a year-over-year basis, just of these, high-level macro trends. So consumer mentions of booking a flight, consumer mentions of booking a hotel, even international travel mentions are continuing to improve and continuing to, start to normalize to those pre-pandemic levels. And I think what's interesting is, the only travel trend that we see that's starting to show some weakness are those taking a road trip mentions, where we're really starting to see those gas prices weigh on consumers whenever they're considering how they're going to travel and where they're going to travel. But overall, whenever we look at these companies, I think that, we're really highlighting Booking and Expedia today. And it's interesting because a lot of times whenever, we come on this show, we have a lean. We say, okay, well, this company might be outperforming, this other company. But whenever we look at Booking and Expedia, if we were to calculate their earnings signal today, they're both exactly the same, which is very rare. It's a +7. So for us, that's definitely leaning bullish, but we are starting to see some, just a little bit of slowdown in momentum. And I think that that's, to be expected as consumers, really surged and returned to travel, that rate of growth is starting to slow down. But long term, we are still seeing signs of normalization. We're still seeing signs that the consumer is getting out there and definitely willing to travel and absolutely is traveling.
Yeah, Megan, I mean, look, these travel stocks rocketed in 2021. Yeah. I mean, they just had big moves, did extremely well. All I think in this setup that 22 would be a return to normalization kind of, in the US and globally. And things have, shifted a little bit. You talked about the rising gas prices. There's other hidden costs too, right? I mean, the rising jet fuel prices are up about 130%. Year over year, and that's going to make its way into ticket prices. It's going to make its way into some of these booking prices. So how does a company like Expedia or Booking, how do they maintain that kind of demand? Because they're not completely inelastic, right? At some point, you would think that companies like them and then some of the hotel companies and travel companies in general, you would start to see some of that enthusiasm wane, would you not?
Yeah, I think that, one of the things that both of these companies have going for them is they both have a very diverse, array of offerings. Whenever you look at something like Expedia, they've got, the traditional booking site under their umbrella, but then they also have names like VRBO or Verbo, I guess that they would call it. And we see, those mentioned specifically for that brand underneath Expedia doing really well. I think Expedia also has another brand excelling, which is interesting, is Hotwire in our data. It has some of the highest from a volume perspective and also overall growth perspective of potentially consumers who are starting to seek out those deals. They want to travel, but they want to save some money while they're traveling. So I think that, those are some brands in Expedia's back pocket that can continue to help them, lure consumers in and keep things relatively affordable. On the booking side of things, I think it's interesting because Booking has this international segment, Agoda, I believe, and we're seeing some really strong strength out of that. So as international travel resumes, I think that that's one area of improvement that Booking may be able to, point to. In addition, underneath Booking's umbrella is Open Table. So, as people start returning to restaurants and things, that's another indicator for us of, okay, how comfortable is the consumer? Is inflation really weighing on the consumer? Are they starting to change those purchasing habits? And so far for us, we're not seeing that the consumer is reaching a breaking point quite yet. We have, Open Table mentions underneath Booking's umbrella are up 77% year over year and rising even faster on a quarter over quarter basis. We have mentions of going to a restaurant also rising at a similar clip. So I think that consumers, at least for right now, are definitely still getting out there and they're still traveling and they're still spending. And so we'll just be watching really closely to see if and when that starts to slow down.
Megan, I want to focus on one of your charts. It's the year-over-year percentage change 30-day moving average. And yeah, I think this is the screaming trend chart of a reopening U.S. economy. The fact that every bit of travel, is up and taking a road trip is down. That tells you that there's a fundamental shift back to the way life used to be and away from the way we were forced to be. Now, that's what that signals to me. First, I want to know if that signals to LikeFolio as well. And second, I want to ask you, Uber has made some news this week talking about you can start to book other things through their app. They've added New York City taxis. They intend to offer more. Have you seen Uber pop up on any of your metrics in terms of travel yet?
You know, it's interesting because we saw that. I think aren't they calling themselves or trying to call themselves the Amazon of travel, of booking? You know, it's interesting because Uber has been outperforming Lyft, at least in our data, because they do have kind of a larger menu of offerings for consumers. Now, so far, you know, we didn't record any enormous spike from the consumer's standpoint. However, you can see that, and Uber knows that the more touch points that you can engage a consumer, the more likely they are to use your platform. So, you know, that's part of the thinking behind Uber Eats and also Uber driving, is that, you know, if you have the app open already and you're using it to get you from point A to point B, you're also more likely to order food and really start to build this whole ecosystem. You know, that's a common theme. So I think it makes sense that Uber would want to get into this arena because they're in the business of moving things, and moving people is certainly one of them. And so, you know, this is definitely something we'll watch moving forward. But from our data, we haven't seen it move the needle like super significantly from a consumer side of things.
Yeah, I
so,
think
Megan,
my follow.
Finally, go ahead, Joe. No, sure, go ahead, Joe.
No, I was just going to say the follow-up point, I think, is when you look where the Uber CEO came from, right? I mean, you look at these relationships and this idea that, hey, if you can have a one-stop shop for everything, where you keep people engaged at all levels of kind of that vertical integration, then that's a working system. So yeah, I just wanted to add to that. Thank you.
Yeah. No, it makes complete sense.
Yeah, I mean, I think Uber, let's face it, their relationship to this conversation is they're involved in people moving from one place to another, and they've got to keep finding ways to get closer to profitability, right? So that's, I think, Uber's role and why they continue to try to expand their footprint in what they do. But Megan Brantley, always appreciate you coming on a Friday and brightening up Fast Market with your presentation. And the fact that you did travel even made it better. Megan, have a great day. Always a pleasure to have you on.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Enjoy.
All right, Joe, now you